Local 4 News starts now with a breaking news alert.
And what a news day. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Drew. First at 4, we are tracking a presidential election cliffhanger, and things are getting heated up in Michigan. At this hour, ballots are still being counted. We have team coverage. Hank Winchester is covering new election drama at the TCF Center in Detroit, while Mara McDonald will tell us how President Trump's campaign says it's trying to stop the count. Mara, this is late breaking news.
Karen, here's the situation. Here come the lawyers, I'm sure both for the Republicans and the Democrats, and really it should not be a surprise considering how slim the margin is in this state, especially when you look at that U.S. Senate race. So here's what the Trump campaign did this afternoon, late this afternoon, I might add. They filed a lawsuit in the Court of Claims in Lansing requesting to stop the vote. Here is what that lawsuit hinges on. Stop the vote, it says, until meaningful access can be granted. What's the problem? Well, I've been getting calls all day from Republicans, primarily here at the TCF Center, who are concerned about how poll watching is going down here. Whether these are legitimate concerns, whether this is campaign theatrics, it is unclear. We reached out to former U.S. Attorney Barb McQuade about the process of how this is supposed to go. Take a listen.
What President Trump is seeking is access to the place where the votes are being counted. And ordinarily, there are some rules about that. You can have a credentialed challenger can be permitted in the room to make sure that rules are being followed properly. So I'd be surprised if our Secretary of State is denying that proper access if they've complied with the rules about challengers.
Back here live, a lot of those challengers have been hanging out outside the TCF Center. I think that we're in a position, Kieran, where everybody just needs to stand down and stand by and see what happens here. I don't think it is a done deal with whatever the Court of Claims is going to decide. The AG, Dana Nessel, says she has not seen the lawsuit yet that the Trump campaign has filed. And while the majority of the concern is about TCF, I can tell you there are also some concerns about other spots in the state, like Antrim County, which appears to be having some kind of a counting issue. So stand by. We have a long ways to go. We're live downtown tonight. I'm Mara McDonald. Back to you.
We sure do, and every vote counts, and sometimes it just takes a little bit longer to count all those votes. Thank you, Mara. Keep us posted as you get new information. Meantime, as the legal battle over the ballots is launched, here's where things stand right now in the presidential race. Here in Michigan, you can see Joe Biden coming in with 50% of the vote, but that margin there is very, very slim. President Trump and Joe Biden are fighting to get to 270 electoral votes. For now, Biden has the edge. Right now, the Associated Press says Biden has won Wisconsin, but President Trump's campaign is promising to immediately ask for a recount in that state, which would slow down things over there. Election workers have been counting ballots at the TCF Center since 7 a.m. yesterday. The center has now become the focus of growing concerns over the ballots and how they're being counted. So let's bring in Hank Winchester. He has been tracking the drama all day, and it seems like tension is building late this afternoon. Hank, what's going on?
Karen, it certainly was about an hour and a half ago. I can tell you just within about the last 15, 20 minutes, things have calmed down here considerably, essentially because police have come out and said, listen, here's the deal. We're at COVID capacity. We are not letting anybody else into the room you see behind me, which is where the counting is taking place. But you bring up a good point. It was tense here earlier as representatives from both the GOP and the Democratic Party were on hand. Take a look at some of the video. They wanted inside. They wanted to be able to have an opportunity to oversee the counting. But like I said, leaders say not only were they at COVID capacity, but also the capacity of counters who were allowed on the floor. So you see here that things got a little bit heated. Police were brought in. And then this crowd, we're being told right now is that in the city of Detroit, they were working to count about 165,000 absentee or early ballots. The majority of those have now been counted. In fact, the clerk here in the city of Detroit saying that she expects to have numbers later today, possibly final numbers regarding that count here. But if you take a live look behind me, you can see there are still a few people, both representing the Democratic and Republican parties, who are hoping to get in to oversee oversee this process. We had an opportunity to hear from the Secretary of State earlier today about what is going on here at TCF. Here's what she had to say.
I think it's important to note that as we look over the record-breaking voter turnout in this election, where over 5 million citizens voted, 2/3 of that, 3.2 million citizens at least, voted absentee. So over the past several hours and indeed through the night, what's been happening here on the ground in Michigan, all throughout the state, are bipartisan groups of election workers tabulating those ballots effectively, methodically, and securely.
And that work continues here at the TCF Center in downtown Detroit. But the people you see behind me, again, some representing the Democratic Party, others representing the Republican Party, say they want to be inside. They want to supervise this process to make sure that all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted as we move forward. Again, hoping to get some final numbers still yet today. We're live here downtown. Hank Winchester, back to you.
All right, Hank, and we'll be checking back with you tonight at 5. Razor-thin margins in the presidential race have both candidates waiting, watching, and sending messages to supporters. President Trump facing a backlash over comments he made overnight falsely and prematurely declaring victory. Kimberly Gill in the newsroom. And Kim, we were expecting to hear from Joe Biden a few hours ago, and that's been delayed.
Yeah. Hi, Karen. Good afternoon. So far, neither candidate has spoken publicly today. The former vice president might speak at any minute, but we're still waiting. Late last night, Biden urged supporters to be patient during this extended count.
We knew because of the unprecedented early vote and the mail-in vote that it's going to take a while. We're going to have to be patient until the hard work of tallying the votes is finished. And it ain't over till every vote is counted, every ballot is counted.
President Trump was not urging patience. Overnight, he tried to claim victory even though millions of valid votes still need to be counted. Here's part of what he had to say at the White House.
I want to thank the American people for their tremendous support. Millions and millions of people voted for us tonight. And a very sad group of people is trying to disenfranchise that group of people. And we won't stand for it. We will not stand for it.
And again, it's important to note the legal counting of valid ballots does not disenfranchise anyone. There's a huge number of absentee ballots in several states for several reasons, including the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Some states, such as Michigan, couldn't even start counting those ballots until Election Day, so the process just takes time. Karen, we're monitoring things with the Trump and Biden campaigns, and we'll have the...
Okay, thank you very much, Kim. We really appreciate it. We'll see you at 5. Now, the other huge race in Michigan is the battle for a U.S. Senate seat, and that is between Gary Peters and John James. Peters is the Democratic incumbent. Right now, you can see. Let's take a look at those numbers. Gary Peters, Democrat, coming in at 49%. John James, 49%. But look at the difference. I mean, we are talking about 2,607,000 votes to 2,601,000 votes. A very slim margin. Republicans are expected to keep control of the U.S. Senate, but Democrats are hoping Peters can hang on to keep that margin as close as possible. Now, no matter which candidate you support this election, cliffhangers leave many of us just drowning in a sea of uncertainty, anxiety, and doubt. Paula Tutman tries to put those feelings into perspective, and she's found some advice on how to cope.
All right, welcome back to our 2020 election night / wee hours of the morning.
Watching the election returns had more back and forth than a championship ping pong game and more heart-stopping plummets than a 60-mile-per-hour roller coaster ride. And today, Americans, no matter who they voted for, are in limbo in terms of knowing who the next president will be.
We were up till 3 a.m. watching the news and watching votes come in, polls come in, ballots here, ballots there, absentee ballots, mail-ins, polls not closing, information not being uploaded.
What really has me on the fence about everything is other people's views and how nasty people has been, about the whole thing.
And many are anxious, out of their heads anxious.
I guess I am feeling anxious. I think so. Everybody wants to know who's our president going to be, for the next 4 years.
Cynthia Reynolds of First Family Counseling in Detroit and Bingham Farms says this, coupled with COVID trauma, is a 1-2 punch.
What we have to do is get it out of our heads that the only emotions or feelings that we have are happy, sad, or mad. So we have been, in a sense, introduced to new feelings, anxiety, depression, uncertainty. And that brings up things that we're not used to coping with.
She says there are ways to mitigate the stress and strain, starting with all those people you love to commiserate with about anything and everything.
Sometimes when we're in a state of stress or anxiety, we tend to actually seek out other people with those same kind of feelings.
She says when you reach out right now, use your time together differently, not commiserating, griping, complaining, or digging your anxiety hole deeper, double time.
Somebody needs to stand up and say, hey, let's not do this. This isn't helpful. Be that person that says, no, we're not doing this today. Let's relax. You don't have to do it forever, but maybe even take some things off of the table. How about we not talk about, politics, race, or religion just for a few days?
Yeah, and listen, the biggest thing is acknowledging that you have this anxiety, finding strategies to deal with it so it doesn't turn physical, Karen.
Very much, Paula. Now, the very latest, Joe Biden speaking to the crowd. Let's listen in. We did make a mistake. Now we are not going to do that. We do understand there are some developments at the TCF Center. Hank Winchester is there at this hour. We understand their tensions are growing. That is the area where they are counting ballots. Many people have showed up asking to see if they can, quote, watch the ballot counting. Police had recently told them.
We'll complete this vote soon, maybe as early as today. And I feel very good about Pennsylvania. Virtually all the remaining ballots to be counted were cast by mail. And we've been winning 78% of the votes by mail in Pennsylvania. We've flipped Arizona and the 2nd District of Nebraska. Of special significance to me is that we've won with the majority of the American people. And every indication is that that majority will grow. We have a popular vote lead of nearly 3 million votes, and every indication is that will grow as well. Indeed, Senator Harris and I are on track to win more votes than any ticket in the history of this country that ever won the presidency and vice presidency. Over 70 million votes. I'm very proud of our campaign. Only 3 presidential campaigns in the past have defeated an incumbent president. When it's finished, God willing, we'll be the 4th. This is a major achievement. This is a major achievement. And it's been a long and difficult campaign, but it's been a more difficult time for our country, a hard time. We've had hard campaigns before. We've faced hard times before. So once this election is finalized and behind us, it'll be time for us to do what we've always done as Americans, to put the harsh rhetoric of the campaign behind us, to lower the temperature, to see each other again, to listen to one another, to hear each other again, and respect and care for one another, to unite, to heal, to come together as a nation. I know this won't be easy. I'm not naive. Neither of us are. I know how deep and hard the opposing views are in our country on so many things. But I also know this as well. To make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as enemies. We are not enemies. What brings us together as Americans is so much stronger than anything that can tear us apart. So let me be clear. We are campaigning as Democrats, but I will govern as an American president. The presidency itself is not a partisan institution. It's the one office in this nation that represents everyone. And it demands a duty of care for all Americans. And that is precisely what I will do I will work as hard for those who didn't vote for me as I will for those who did vote for me. Now, every vote must be counted. No one's going to take our democracy away from us. Not now, not ever. America's come too far. America's fought too many battles. America's endured too much to ever let that happen. We, the people, will not be silenced. We, the people, will not be bullied. We, the people, will not surrender. My friends, I'm confident we'll emerge victorious. But this will not be my victory alone or our victory alone. It'll be a victory for the American people, for our democracy, for America. And there will be no blue states and red states when we win, just the United States of America. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.
Joe Biden talking about how he has won the state of Wisconsin throughout the day. The Trump campaign has mentioned that they were looking for a recount in that state. Joe Biden coming out clearly, strongly saying that he has won that state, going on to tell the crowd, we will not be bullied, we will not surrender. And when he wins the election, he says there will be no blue states and no red states. Okay, let's get back to local. And that's breaking news, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Let's send it down to downtown Detroit. Hank Woodchester is standing outside near the TCF Center, and that is where they're doing ballot counting. What's happened? We just talked to you about 10 minutes ago, Hank.
Yeah, Karen, and at that point, and I apologize for how loud it is right now, at that point things seem pretty calm. Within the last 5 or 10 minutes, a group of those supporting the GOP made their way down the escalators here, and you can hear them saying, stop the count, stop the count. They keep chanting that they want the leaders inside the ballroom here behind me to stop counting the ballots that still need to be counted. They've maintained all day long that this is not a legal process. They've been following the news regarding the Trump campaign, working to file legal action to stop the counting here in Michigan. And right now, a few of them just came up to me and said that they believe the information that they've reached COVID capacity within that ballroom is simply not true. They said that they've been doing their own counting and that there's plenty of room for others to make their way inside as the counting continues. Again, the chant, stop the count, has been going on here for about the last 5 or 10 minutes. We've got a group of about 50 to 75 people. They're loud, so far peaceful. On the other side of Cobo here, the TCF Center, you've got police just kind of monitoring the situation, letting these people make their voices heard. And you can hear right now the chants have just stopped. But they are working to make their way inside. This is a situation that's changing by the minute, as you can imagine. We're going to keep an eye on it as it develops. And Karen, we're going to have much more for you live here at 5 o'clock. Back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Hank. And of course, we'll be checking back with you if anything else happens before 5 o'clock. Now, the Detroit Department of Elections had insinuated that they were going to release their final counts at 6 p.m. Of course, we will stay tuned. Also, this just in, CNN is announcing, projecting that Biden has won the state of Michigan. Again, CNN projecting Joe Biden has won the state of Michigan. We are continuing to work on the latest numbers and ballot counting. Stick with us. Still ahead, there's a potential problem with about 375,000 SUVs. That can raise the risk of a crash. It's already happened a dozen times. What you need to know. Up first, new information on a fatal police-involved shooting in Detroit. What we've learned about the man police shot and killed. More news first at 4.